In Laboratory Reddit, today's story is...
My stepdaughter moved to another city, and I discovered her shocking secret when I answered her phone. I never imagined that 8 years of maternal love would end with a single phone call. I married Scott 8 years ago, a decision that I consider to be one of the best of my life. At the time, Scott was a single father raising his young daughter Jessie alone. Jessie's biological mother, Erin, had been unfaithful during her marriage to Scott, and after the divorce, she decided to give up custody of Jessie completely. It was heartbreaking to hear that she wanted no contact with Jessie, leaving Scott to deal with the consequences. It is difficult to imagine the pain that Jessie must have felt as a young child losing her mother so abruptly from her life. When Scott and I started our relationship, he was very clear about one thing. Jessie would always be his priority. He explained to me everything she had suffered at such a young age, and the importance of making her feel safe and loved. He was concerned about the abandonment issues she faced after what had happened to her mother, and I could see how deeply he cared for her. I greatly admired that quality in him, as it showed what an extraordinary father he was. The first time I met Jessie, I was struck by how sweet and kind she was despite everything she had been through. There was something very special about her, and I felt an immediate connection. At first, we built a friendship. I didn't want to rush anything or force bonds, but over time that friendship evolved into something much deeper. I really fell in love with this girl. She wasn't just Scott's daughter to me, she also became my daughter. I wanted to protect and nurture her. What made the situation even more beautiful was how my own family welcomed her. They didn't see her simply as Scott's daughter. They considered her an integral part of our family. She was welcomed with open arms and treated like one of us from the start. It filled me with joy to see Jessie surrounded by so much love, and I felt proud to be part of a family that could give her that sense of belonging and stability that she so richly deserved. When Scott and I got married, Jessie was our flower girl. She looked radiant as she walked down the aisle, scattering petals with a huge smile on her face. What really moved me was the emotional speech she gave during the reception. She stood in front of all the guests and, in her own words, talked about how happy she was to have me in her life. It was such a genuine and heartfelt moment that not a single dry eye remained in the room. From that day on, I never thought of her as my stepdaughter. To me, she was simply my daughter, and that's how I introduced her to everyone. Along the way, Scott and I shared equal responsibility for raising Jessie. We set out to provide her with everything she needed to thrive, from emotional support to the best education we could offer her. We accompanied her to university, and it was one of the proudest moments of our lives to see her graduate. Recently, Jessie got an excellent job in another city, which turned out to be exciting but bittersweet news. Scott and I didn't want her to move so far away, but she insisted that this was where she wanted to develop her career. Although it hurt to see her leave, we supported her decision. We helped her find a flat, packed her belongings, and made sure she had everything she needed for this new chapter in her life. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that the real reason she wanted to move to that city was to reconnect with her birth mother, the same person who had abandoned her and caused her so much suffering. It was a shock I was not prepared for. For the last 3 months, I have been in regular contact with Jessie. I call her frequently, and every weekend I make the 4-hour trip to visit her. I stock her refrigerator, help her with the shopping, and take care of small tasks that make her life easier. Jessie is usually quite messy. As she appreciates the effort I make to help her keep everything in order, I do it all out of love, because she is my daughter, and that's what mothers do. Last weekend, I visited her as usual. Jessie and I were busy going through her closet together. She had so many clothes and shoes that there was barely enough space for everything. So she decided it was time to donate the items she no longer needed. We were packing some of her things in boxes, chatting and laughing as we worked. It felt like any other visit until her phone suddenly rang. As his phone was charging in another room, Jessie casually asked me to bring it to him. I got up and went to get it, hoping it would be a friend or maybe a work-related call, but when I picked up his phone and saw the caller ID, I was transfixed. The name on the screen made my heart sink. It was Erin, his birth mother. For a moment, I just stood there staring at the name, unable to process what I was seeing. My mind was filled with questions. Why was she calling him? How had she even got Jesse's number? After taking a few deep breaths to calm myself, I handed the phone back to Jessie. When I handed it to her, I couldn't help but notice how my daughter's eyes widened when she saw the name flashing on the screen. There was a flash of surprise and perhaps even guilt in her expression. She quickly rejected the call without saying a word. The room felt charged with unspoken tension, and I could tell she was trying to avoid my gaze. I couldn't ignore what had just happened. "Jessie," I said softly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Why is your birth mother calling you? How does she even have your number?" She wasn't angry, but hurt, confused, and desperate for answers. Jessie hesitated, looking at her hands as she shifted nervously. Finally, she took a deep breath and confessed. "Mom," she began in a lower, more uncertain voice. "She actually contacted me during my last 6 months of college." I blinked, stunned by her words. She continued speaking faster now, as if trying to explain everything before I could respond. "We've been in touch ever since." Jessie hadn't mentioned a word about this to me, or Scott, not even a hint. It was clear that he had intentionally kept this a secret, and that realization hurt. After everything we had shared and the bond we had built, I couldn't help but feel hurt that he didn't trust me enough to tell me something so significant. I tried to control my emotions as I asked him, "Why would you want to talk to your birth mother after everything you know about her? She abandoned you when you were just a little girl. She left not only your father, but you. So what did she have to say to you now?" Jessie began to argue, saying that his mother had a legitimate reason for leaving them and that it was wrong of me to simply accept Scott's version of events. His words left me reeling, and I felt a strange mixture of frustration and sadness. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. I needed to understand what he was thinking and why he was defending the woman who had caused so much damage. Jesse didn't hold back. He launched into a full defense of his birth mother. He explained that his mother had been unfaithful to Scott because she had fallen out of love with him as their marriage had become very monotonous, and that his mom had been attracted to his best friend and had been with him only a few times. Jessie said that her mom felt terrible about the affair, but she was too ashamed to face the family after it all came out. That shame, according to Jessie, was the reason her mother left Scott, gave up custody, and moved away to start over and heal from the past. I listened carefully as Jessie continued to argue that what her mother did back then was understandable, and that anyone in her position would have acted the same way. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughter was openly justifying the actions of her biological mother. It seemed like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. Taking a deep breath, I responded softly but firmly. "Jessie, I know you care about your mom, and I can see that you're trying to make sense of her actions. But if this is what she's been telling you, I think you need to step back and really think about it. What she is saying doesn't make sense. It seems like she is trying to justify her actions and not take any responsibility for leaving you and your dad. I'm afraid she could be manipulating you. No loving parent willingly abandons their child, no matter the circumstances." Jesse's face tensed, but I could tell he was listening, even if he didn't want to hear what I had to say. I continued, "If she really felt she no longer loved your dad, the right thing to do would have been to get a divorce, not betray him by being unfaithful. And no matter how ashamed she may have been, that doesn't justify her choice to walk away from you. That was a selfish decision, Jessie. A parent's love for their child should override their own feelings of shame or guilt. The truth is that she didn't leave because she loved you or wanted what was best for you. She left because she wanted to make things easier for herself." Hearing this, Jessie was visibly upset, and, to my surprise, she exploded, saying that I had no right to talk like that about her birth mother when I didn't even know her personally. Her words hurt me deeply, but what hurt me most was what she said next. She accused me of being the reason her parents could never try again. Jessie insinuated that if I hadn't come into Scott's life, maybe his birth mother could have returned to her family. For a moment, I was speechless. His accusation felt like a slap in the face, especially because it came out of the blue. I had entered Scott's life long after his divorce, when he had already recovered from the pain caused by his ex-wife. Jessie knew that perfectly well, yet now He was blaming me as if I were somehow responsible for the decisions his mother had made. After taking a moment to collect my thoughts, I decided to change the conversation, hoping to dispel the tension and refocus on what was important. "Look," I began, "if you want to have a relationship with your biological mother, that's your choice. You're an adult now. Nobody can or should stop you from doing what you want. But please, just be careful. She willingly walked away from you and your dad. She gave up custody, her choice, not your dad's. He would never have wanted that. He has always put you first, and has always wanted to give you the love and stability you deserve. I don't want to see you get hurt, Jesse, that's all I'm saying. Take care of your heart." Instead of trying to understand my perspective, Jesse's reaction was much harsher than I expected. He directly asked me to leave his house. His tone was sharp when he said that it was none of my business and that I wasn't his real mother anyway. His cold words left me stunned. All I wanted was to protect her and share my concerns out of love, but he seemed unable or unwilling to see that. I didn't want to make the situation worse, so I didn't insist on arguing. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I silently gathered my belongings and left her apartment. During the trip home, I couldn't get over the pain and disbelief I felt. This was my daughter, whom I had loved and cared for as if she were my own for so many years. And yet, in that moment, she treated me as if I were a stranger intruding in her life. When I got home, I told Scott everything that had happened, about Jessie's secret communication with her birth mother, the accusations she had made against me, and how she had asked me to leave. His reaction was exactly what I expected. He was furious. He was annoyed that his ex-wife was trying to get back into Jessie's life by distorting the truth and presenting herself as a victim. He immediately wanted to call Jessie to set the record straight, but I stopped him. I gently asked him to give his daughter some space as she might still be upset after our conversation. I assured him that maybe she would eventually reach out and talk to us when she was ready. He reluctantly agreed, although I could see how much it hurt him to remain silent like me. Scott had always prioritized Jessie's well-being above all else, and seeing how she was being manipulated in this way broke his heart. Over the next few days, Jessie remained completely silent. She didn't call or send messages, and the longer the silence went on, the more worried I became. I couldn't help wondering if she was okay. Was she eating properly? Was she safe? Did she need help but didn't want to ask for it? Today I decided I couldn't wait any longer and sent her a short and simple message. "Hi, Jessie. I hope you're well. Just checking in. Let me know if you need anything. Love you." I deliberately avoided mentioning our last conversation or anything about her birth mother. I didn't want to reopen old wounds or make things worse. My only concern was to make sure she was okay. A few hours later, my phone vibrated with a long message from Jessie. She told me that I had crossed a line by talking about her birth mother and accused me of overstepping the mark. She wrote that at the end of the day, I was only a stepmother to her, and that blood was thicker than water. According to her, her birth mother would always be more important to her than I could ever be. As I read her words, my heart broke all over again. After everything we had been through together, everything I had done for her, it was as if none of it mattered. She went on to accuse me of being jealous and petty because I had criticized her mother. Then, to top it all off, she demanded that I apologize to her for what I had said. I'm really surprised by her strong reaction, honestly. I only said what I said because I have literally raised her since she was a child and loved her as my own. I am not jealous at all. In fact, if her birth mother has really changed and genuinely wants to form a connection with her, then that is wonderful. However, I thought it was good for her to be a little cautious. Am I the bad guy because of what I said to my stepdaughter? Update 1. There are some people in the comments who keep saying that I'm being controlling or cruel about Jessie reconnecting with her birth mother. I want to make something absolutely clear. That is not true, not at all. My concern comes from a place of love, not from any desire to control her or hurt her feelings. Please try to understand that Jessie went through a lot when she was a child, more than most people her age should have to endure. When her mom left, it wasn't just sudden. It was unexpected, without any explanation or closure. That kind of abandonment left a deep scar on her. It wasn't just Jesse who suffered. Scott was also devastated. After his divorce, he found it difficult to trust anyone. He had been taken by surprise by his ex-wife's betrayal and the fact that she had completely given up not only their marriage, but also their daughter. He devoted every ounce of his energy to being the best father he could be, but the weight of what had happened affected him deeply. When I entered their lives, I could see how fragile the situation was. Jessie was a little girl who longed for the love and attention she felt she had lost. And Scott was a man trying to hold it all together for her while silently dealing with his own pain. But none of that scared me. In fact, it brought me closer to them. When I started dating Scott and met Jessie for the first time, I immediately fell in love with her. She was this incredible little person who had been through so much and yet still had so much sweetness and hope inside her. Over time, that love only grew stronger. I have seen Jessie through her most difficult moments. I have held her through countless nights of her crying her eyes out, asking why her mom didn't love her, questioning what she did wrong to deserve being abandoned. It broke my heart every time. I accompanied her to therapy sessions, sat with her, and helped her find her way to healing. It wasn't easy, but over the years, I saw her become this strong, confident, and beautiful woman. I was, and still am, very proud of her. That's why this situation with her birth mother worries me so much. If her birth mother were truly kind-hearted and well-intentioned, neither Scott nor I would have a problem with Jessie reconnecting with her. If it were about Jessie finding closure or rebuilding a genuine relationship, I would fully support her, but that's not what it looks like. Her mother's past actions and the way she is handling things now give me no confidence that she has Jessie's best interests in mind. Also, I am now sure why Jessie chose to move to that particular city. She went there in the hope of reconnecting with her biological mother, as she also lives there. And although I don't know if they have already met face to face, the thought unsettles me, not because I don't want Jessie to have a relationship with her mom, but because I don't want her to get hurt again. Anyway, after reading all the comments here, I decided to send Jessie a message. I told her I'm not going to apologize to her for what I said because I don't think I did anything wrong. I wasn't disrespectful, and I didn't say anything untrue. If listening to the facts upset her, then that's something she'll have to deal with on her own. I didn't mean to hurt her. I was protecting her and helping her see things clearly, but I can't apologize for telling the truth, and I'm not going to pretend to agree with her just to keep the peace. Scott also spoke to Jessie on the phone. They had what turned out to be a very difficult and emotional conversation. Scott told Jessie directly that his birth mother could not be trusted. He reminded her of all the pain her mother had caused by abandoning her and leaving Scott to deal with the consequences. He made it clear that although she had the right to make her own decisions, he and I were deeply concerned about her choice to reconnect with someone who had shown so little consideration for her well-being in the past. Scott also warned him bluntly that if he chose to continue a relationship with his birth mother, despite everything, he should not come running back to us if things went wrong. I think he said it out of frustration and a sense of betrayal. Jessie had gone behind his back to rekindle a relationship with the same person who had walked away from both of them without a second thought. It hurt him deeply that she hadn't trusted him enough to share this before. Jessie, however, was defensive. She told Scott that she knows her birth mother better than anyone now and claimed that we were being too judgmental. She then said that if she ever had to choose between her birth mother and us, she would choose her mother. Scott, although hurt, kept his composure and made it clear that no one was asking him to make such a choice. He assured her that she was free to have contact with whomever she wanted, but it seemed that Jessie did not believe him. She argued that we were being less than favorable to her decision and accused us of creating a negative environment that was depressing her. Then Jessie went on to admit how deep down he had always secretly dreamed that his biological parents would get back together one day. Despite everything that had happened, he still clung to this fantasy of them being reunited and being a real family again. He told Scott that if she wanted him to, he would at least consider this idea. On hearing this, Scott immediately rejected the proposal. He firmly told her to get the idea out of her head. He reminded her that what his mother had done, being unfaithful to him and abandoning her own daughter, was not something he could forgive. much less forget. Scott pointed out that he was very happily married to me now, and that although Jessie was welcome to have a relationship with her mother, if that was what she wanted, he had no right to pressure her into having one. What followed was a heated argument. Jessie accused Scott of being unsupportive, while Scott maintained his position and refused to consider her requests. By the end of the conversation, Jessie was so angry that she vowed to cut off all communication with us. She told Scott that she wanted nothing more to do with either of us, and ended the call by blocking us both. Update 2. Hi everyone, it's been a while. It turns out that my suspicions were correct from the start. Erin, the birth mother, contacted Jessie for a reason. You see, Erin has a whole new family now. She is remarried and has another child, a boy who, according to what Jessie was told, has autism and some other problems as well. Since Erin and Jessie reconnected, she had been pushing for Jessie to meet her son. She was also encouraging her to bond with him, to get to know him as if they were already family. But as time went on, Erin began asking Jessie to take on more of a maternal role towards his half-brother. Things worsened when she finally confessed to Jessie that she and her husband had decided that in the future, if something happened to either of them, their plan was for Jessie to assume full responsibility for their autistic half-brother. Erin explained that no one else in the family wanted to take on that responsibility, as it is not an easy one, and since Jessie is now family, they wanted her to do it. Jessie was understandably shocked by this and immediately refused. She made it clear that she didn't know the child well enough, and that she wasn't prepared to be his carer for the rest of his life, even if it was just a hypothetical situation. The rejection was not well received by her mother. In fact, it caused a huge confrontation. Erin screamed at her, yelled, and became incredibly angry. The situation escalated to the point where she even threatened to cut off all contact with Jessie if she did not give in to her demands. This was too much for Jessie to handle, and it must have been very painful for her to realize how toxic the relationship with her mother really was. The whole situation seemed manipulative, and it's clear that the birth mother was trying to use guilt and threats to get what she wanted, and in the end, Jessie had no choice but to cut off contact with her. Then, this week, Jessie got in touch with us after months of silence and estrangement. He unblocked our numbers and sent an apology. Jessie admitted that we were right about Erin and that he should have listened to us. He told us the whole story about what had happened with his mother, and how she had been manipulated into believing that she was the only one who could take care of her half-brother. He explained how he now understood everything we had been saying to him from the beginning. He begged for our forgiveness and expressed deep regret for his actions. Although we were happy to hear from her, we were also a little apprehensive. It has been 7 months since we last spoke to her. In all that time, she has not contacted us once and has shown no remorse for the harm she caused us. Now, after everything that happened with her birth mother, she suddenly wants to get back in touch. The truth is that it is difficult to overcome the pain he caused us. For so long, Jessie pushed us away and sided with his birth mother, even when we were only trying to protect her. We were left wondering if he would ever come back to us, and now after all this time, it is almost as if he is approaching as if nothing had happened. It's hard not to feel that the apology might have been motivated more by guilt or a realization of what she has lost, rather than genuine remorse. Scott and I are still discussing what we should do. Of course, we want to welcome her back. She is our daughter, and we love her. But there is still a lot of uncertainty about how to approach the situation. Trust is not something that can be rebuilt overnight, and we both know that. We want to believe in Jessie, but it's going to take time. She has a lot of trust to rebuild with us, so we are going to take it one step at a time. Update 3. A month has passed since my last update. For anyone wondering, Scott and Jessie have managed to reconnect, but I have continued to keep some distance from her. The thing is, I'm not like Scott. I can't just forget those harsh words. Jessie hurt me when she wanted to continue her relationship with her birth mother. Fortunately, Scott understands my position, but Jessie feels that I am being a little too harsh on her. She keeps saying that after her multiple apologies, I should be able to forgive and forget, but for me, it's just not that simple. I can't erase the hurtful things she said to me and how much she broke my heart in the process. Recently, there was a family gathering where both Jessie and I were present. She kept trying to hug me and act warm and affectionate as if everything was back to normal, but I couldn't behave that way. I kept my distance, and I know I was a little cold to her. I just couldn't let my guard down after everything that had happened. Later, after the event, Jessie sent me a message about how hurt she was by my behavior. She said that I was treating her like a stepdaughter, and that she no longer felt any warmth from me. Reading her words, I felt somewhat frustrated. I firmly told her that she shouldn't be surprised by my attitude because she was the one who pushed me away in the first place. I explained that I needed to give myself time because I am not someone who forgets things easily. Just a few months ago, she completely cut off contact with us because of her birth mother, and now she expects me to act as if none of that had ever happened. My mind doesn't work like that. I know she wants everything to be okay again immediately, but it's hard to just flip a switch and pretend that things are back to the way they were. For me, trust doesn't just automatically return, it takes time. Right now, I need that time to heal. I'm not going to let her back into my heart without a lot more honesty and understanding on her part.